A dramatic event took place recently, when the International Criminal Court, ICC, issued an arrest warrant for Russian President Vladimir Putin on charges of committing war crimes during the war in Ukraine. However, how can the Russian leader be arrested and tried? Or what impact will this have on the current battlefield? The UK's Sky News has some commentaries on these issues. Please continue to follow right here. In the ICC statement, the court ordered the arrest of Putin on suspicion of Russia illegally deporting children and people from Ukraine to the territory of the Russian Federation. The ICC also ordered the arrest of Maria Alexeyevna Lvova-Belova, Russia's Commissioner for Children's Rights, on similar charges. Legal commentator Joshua Rosenberg told Sky News that the ICC's arrest warrant was a dramatic move amid the current situation. But Putin will not appear in court unless he is directly arrested, and of course, Putin is very difficult to be detained while still running Russia. The same will happen with Mrs. Lvova-Belova. Furthermore, the ICC does not have its own police force, so they often cooperate with the police of the host country. Rosenberg noted that there would not be many problems in the short term and that Putin probably anticipated the move of the ICC from the very beginning of the special military operation. The commentator added, "Many expect an ICC arrest warrant to be the first step towards international criminal justice. But obviously when Putin is in office, it's very unlikely that anything big will happen." Meanwhile, Chilean Dr. Ebo Osuji, president of the ICC for the 2018 to 2021 term, said the arrest warrant is really important because it proves that no one is above international law. When Sky News asked if the ICC's move was a meaningless gesture, Ebo Osuji replied that every influential figure in modern times, if targeted by a court of law, will eventually have to face justice. He added, "Certainly this issue will end with the Russian leader being impeached. Putin should understand that this is a reality, not a prediction." Military analyst Sean Bell said the arrest warrant could thwart any Russian plans to end the war. "It's hard to know how Putin will be on the negotiating table if he is forced to face trial," Bell said. "Anything that makes him doubly isolated and broken will make him determined to continue the war in Ukraine to the end. To me, the ICC's move cannot contribute to an early end to the conflict." Dominic Waghorn, Sky News International Affairs editor, agrees with Bell, saying that the ICC's arrest warrant threatens to hinder peace talks. Returning to legal commentator Rosenberg, Sky News asked if the ICC allegations made Putin more isolated. Rosenberg said it was up to the United Nations. The ICC is not part of the United Nations. It is a separate body established by several countries. However, the ICC has a close relationship with the United Nations because the UN has full power to bring a case to court. Rosenberg also pointed out that the accusation of illegally deporting Ukrainians to Russia is a relatively minor crime compared to what Putin is responsible for causing the war in Ukraine. On the other hand, the commentator added, "All we know is that now the ICC has chosen to bring this allegation to the public. The ICC seems to want to put Putin behind bars. This is difficult to do in the present, but the future is also unpredictable." The ICC has been in operation since July 2002, with the mandate of adjudication to supplement, not to completely replace, the national courts. The governing law of the ICC is the Rome Statute. It is also the world's first permanent international criminal court. About 123 countries are members of the tribunal, excluding India, Indonesia, China, and the United States, as these countries withdrew their signatures from the Rome Statute in 2002. Like other Western leaders, U.S. President Joe Biden also commented on the arrest warrant for his Russian counterpart, Putin, issued by the International Criminal Court. The leader said this was a legitimate move. President Biden told reporters on March 17, "Putin clearly committed war crimes. I think the decision is justifiable." The problem, however, is that neither the US nor Russia accept the International Criminal Court. But nonetheless, the move sent a strong message. Earlier, a U.S. State Department spokesman said, "We have made it clear that those responsible for crimes must be punished." The arrest warrant is determined independently by the ICC prosecutor based on facts. Russia has not yet commented on Biden's response or the US's response to the incident. The ICC was established under the Rome Statute of 1998. Neither Russia nor Ukraine have ratified the Rome Statute establishing the ICC. Moscow has rejected the ICC's decision against President Putin and Child Rights Commissioner Maria Lvova-Belova. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Russia does not recognize the ICC, so its rulings are legally void. Some countries such as China and India also do not recognize the jurisdiction of the ICC. Before the news that Chinese President Xi Jinping would come to Russia to meet Putin, U.S. President Joe Biden recently said he had a plan to have a dialogue with the Chinese leader. According to information from CNN, before Biden had a phone call with Xi Jinping, a meeting took place in Washington to discuss Xi's trip to Russia for a 3-day summit with Putin. The trip of the Chinese leader seems to want to be a potential peacemaker for the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. At the meeting, American officials were skeptical about Xi Jinping's trip, because China has refused to condemn Russia's military campaign for more than a year, and believes that Moscow has been provoked just sent troops into Ukraine. U.S. officials say that any proposal China makes during the visit could boost Russia and hurt Ukraine. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby said, "When we started the agenda, we were very concerned that Beijing's proposals would be one-sided and in favor of Moscow." Kirby asserted that Xi's proposal could be a ceasefire, but that this would only give Russia time to regroup and prepare for a subsequent retaliation. "The ceasefire right now is the impetus for Moscow to continue conquering Ukraine," he said. According to CNN, the White House was not surprised when China announced that the country's leader had a summit with Putin in Russia. The White House has expressed deep concern over Moscow and Beijing's unrestricted relationship. Many argue that if China intervenes, it will prolong the war in Ukraine and challenge Western support. CNN reports that Xi Jinping is increasingly tightening ties with Russia despite the country's isolation on the international stage. The International Criminal Court's (ICC) arrest warrant for Putin is a signal that world leaders must be careful before shaking hands with Moscow. So far, there is no indication that Beijing will provide lethal weapons support to Moscow. However, U.S. officials predict the upcoming meeting in Russia will announce something related to this. National Security Council advisor Jake Sullivan previously said, "We'll have to see what China does next. It is very beneficial for Russia to have more allies on its side." Even so, the U.S. position remains unchanged whether Xi and Putin meet or not. Facing unexpected developments from the International Criminal Court (ICC), Sky News continues to believe that China's reaction will be of concern to the world. Sky News International Affairs editor Dominic Warning said the situation has made Xi Jinping's upcoming visit to Moscow more complicated. China does not recognize the International Criminal Court. In 2002, Beijing did not sign up to the Rome Statute because it considered the ICC's focus and jurisprudence to be inconsistent. Beijing does not approve of any country or court having the right to interfere in China. Waghorn noted, "Until now, China has resolutely not opposed Russia's military campaign when it repeatedly abstained at voting sessions at the United Nations." Earlier, Foreign Affairs correspondent Mary Dejevsky said that the ICC's announcement of the arrest warrant for Putin would not change the upcoming dialogue of the Russia-China alliance. Regarding the allegations made by the ICC against Putin, Dejevsky said, "This allegation is true, but we consider the illegal deportation of Ukrainian children to Russia while in Russia this is described as rescue. So not many people believe in the ICC's allegations." Returning to the latest developments in the Eastern European battlefield, recently, the head of the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic, DPR, Denis Pushilin reported that the Russian forces have prevented a number of units Ukrainians on their way to withdraw their troops from Bakhmut. Currently, Russian forces are gradually entering this stronghold. Pushilin told Russia's Channel 1. "We saw some Ukrainian army units trying to get out of Bakhmut but were stopped by Russian forces. The liberation of this city is very promising." According to the latest report from the Russian side, the army of the country has control of all paved roads that can be easily moved around Bakhmut, while the muddy areas due to melting snow have hindered operations. Supplies Ukraine with ammunition. In addition, Pushilin's advisor Yen Gagin said that Ukrainian troops in the city of Avdiivka near Bakhmut were also surrounded by Russian forces. Gagin confirmed that Russia will control Avdiivka in the next few weeks. Russian forces captured several important settlements to advance to the city. Currently, Russian artillery and air force are active in this direction. Located in the northern part of Donetsk Oblast, the city of Avdiivka had a population of about 30,000 before the conflict. In the Donbass region, this is also one of the major strongholds of the Ukrainian army. Vadim Skibitsky, Deputy Director of the Intelligence Department of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, in an interview on national television, said that the Russian army is digging trenches on the beach in the most dangerous positions they believe to be that a landing could take place. According to the official, the enemy's military infrastructure on the peninsula is always in a state of combat readiness. They have both air and ground vehicles there, with about 90 fighters and 60 armed helicopters. Russia has not yet commented on this information. Earlier, the Institute for the Study of War, ASW, through satellite images also reported that the Russian military was building defensive fortresses in southern Ukraine, along the roads in the Kherson region leading to Crimea within a few days past month. The reports come as Ukrainian officials say Western allies are more open to the idea of taking back Ukraine's peninsula. Russia annexed the Crimean Peninsula after a referendum in 2014. The territory is considered a red line by President Putin. Recently, military activities have begun to escalate in Crimea. Earlier this month, the Russian military announced it had successfully intercepted a large-scale drone attack on the area. On March 17, the UN's Director of Humanitarian Aid, Martin Griffiths, said the UN is doing everything to ensure the Syrian deal is implemented continuously. During a meeting with the Security Council, Griffiths reported that negotiations for an extension were still underway. The United Nations has been trying to find ways to support the export of Russian agricultural products and fertilizers. However, the payment system also has problems. To ensure global food security, the payment system and the Black Sea Grains Initiative must be maintained and facilitated, Griffiths said. A day earlier, the Kremlin announced that it would only extend the agreement by 60, after it expires on March 18. Meanwhile, Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal said Kyiv, Turkey and the United Nations will try to extend the deal for 120 days. According to United Nations data, Ukraine has exported nearly 25 million tons of corn and wheat through ports in the Black Sea. Thanks to this agreement, the main destinations are China, Italy, Spain, Turkey and the Netherlands. Let's move on to other outstanding news from around the world. On March 17, China criticized the New Zealand and British government's ban on the short video sharing application TikTok. Beijing calls this move an abuse of the concept of national security. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin at a regular meeting said that New Zealand and Britain should stop overexpansion and abuse of the concept of national security, and provide an fair and non-discriminatory environment for companies from any country. The two countries just mentioned by Wang have not yet responded to the above comment. Earlier, New Zealand and the UK became the latest countries to impose a ban on TikTok on government devices, for security reasons. Concerns about information security related to ByteDance's TikTok application, China, have increased in recent weeks. Recently, the Biden administration has asked ByteDance to divest from the US company, otherwise TikTok will face additional US bans. Earlier, the US announced that state agencies would have until the end of March to remove the TikTok application from all government devices. Recently, former US President Donald Trump made his first Facebook post after being banned from these two social media platforms since the Capitol riots on January 6, 2021. "I'm back," Trump wrote briefly on Facebook on March 17, along with a short clip from CNN capturing the moment he became president in 2016. In it, he said, "Please, sorry for keeping you guys waiting. The situation is quite complicated." Meanwhile, on the same day, YouTube, owned by Alphabet Corporation, lifted restrictions on the former president's channel, which was also suspended after the Capitol riots. Trump's return on three major platforms is considered to help him more easily reach voters and raise political funds for the 2024 White House election. Before being locked, Facebook accounts, his Instagram and YouTube have 34, 23, and 146 million followers respectively. In addition, the former US president is currently active on Truth Social, which he founded in late 2021. He used this social network to communicate with supporters after being hit by social media platforms' large assembly simultaneously banned the door. On March 17, US President Joe Biden held a musical performance to welcome Irish Prime Minister Leo Varadkar at the White House, on the occasion of St. Patrick's Day. Among the attendees was former Speaker of the US House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi. Most officials, including the US President, have worn ties or dressed in green, the signature color of St. Patrick's Day. Earlier, on the same day, US President Biden and Irish Prime Minister Varadkar had a luncheon historically linking the two countries, at the Capitol. The Irish leader expressed gratitude to the US for helping to advance the Good Friday Treaty, a peaceful solution to ending political violence in Northern Ireland. Earlier this week, Biden said he was planning to visit Ireland next month, on the 25th anniversary of the signing of the agreement. Also on the occasion of St. Patrick's Day, commemorative activities took place in many American cities, the highlight of which is the Green River Festival held in Florida. Hundreds of people have gathered on the banks of the Hillsborough River to watch the moment the river turns a bright blue, as boats drop die into the water. The festival also includes a musical performance and a pet costume contest, attracting a large number of participants. St. Patrick's Festival originates from the Irish community, commemorating the death of St. Patrick, the patron saint of this country. St. Patrick's Day celebrations were first held in America in the 1760s by Irish soldiers on duty in the American colonies. Although they are not related by blood, people across the United States are excited to welcome and see St. Patrick's Day as an important cultural tradition. Meanwhile, the streets of the capital Dublin, Ireland, on the same day also became extremely busy with a large-scale parade celebrating St. Patrick's Day. Crowds of people and tourists with eye-catching blue costumes and accessories were packed on both sides of the road, immersing in the vibrant atmosphere. Also on March 17, Chilean President Gabriel Boric visited a mass grave during the dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet, 1973–1981. Here, the leader reaffirmed the government's commitment to the search for victims missing during the time of dictator Pinochet in power. Chilean President Gabriel Boric is the first Chilean president to visit the mass grave in the northern city of Pisagua, which also houses a prison camp, the notorious torture site of the Pinochet dictatorship. The leader and relatives of the victims placed flowers on the grave. "We are planning a national search operation," Boric said. "Some time has passed, it will be difficult, but we will not stop working to find the missing people." The mass grave in Pisagua was found in 1990, with the bodies of 21 prisoners. According to government documents, the salt of the desert helped preserve the bodies, the clothes they wore, and even the ropes that bound them. This year Chile will mark the 50th anniversary of the 1973 military coup that brought General Pinochet to power, ushering in the Dark Ages in the South American country until 1990. During this period, more than 3,000 people have been murdered or gone missing and about 28,000 have been tortured. On March 17, French President Emmanuel Macron faced his most serious challenge ever when a wave of Yellow Vests protests broke out against his pension reform policy. Earlier, Macron controversially passed pension reform without a vote. This led to violence in the streets that followed. While people protested peacefully in French cities, the capital Paris appeared violent with burned cars. Unions have urged workers to step up and block the Paris Ring Boulevard shortly. Under the pension overhaul policy, the French retirement age will increase by 2 years, from 62 to 64. The government believes this is a necessary policy to ensure the pension system does not collapse. In contrast, the unions and the French people do not agree with this view. In order for the reform to be approved, French Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne on March 16 announced the application of Article 49:3 of the Constitution to bypass the voting stage. The French Union insists it will continue to fight to block the policy. In addition, they also plan to carry out a large protest on March 23. Opposition lawmakers in France said they had submitted a motion of no confidence to Parliament late on March 17. Coming to international sports movement, the English Premier League, the Crystal Palace club sacked coach Patrick Vieira after a series of 11 games without a win. Despite being in 12th place in the rankings, the team is currently only 3 points above the relegation group. Crystal Palace are the only team in the English Premier League without a win in 2023. Their last win was on December 31 against Bournemouth, with a score of 2-0. Crystal Palace chairman Steve Parish said in a statement, "It is with great regret that this difficult decision has to be made. The results in recent months have put us in jeopardy. We need to change to stay in the Premier League." Former France international, Vieira won 3 Premier League titles with Arsenal and 4 FA Cups as a player. He replaced coach Roy Hodgson, becoming the manager of Crystal Palace in July 2021 with a 3-year contract. It is not clear who will replace Vieira. In the near future, Crystal Palace will have a away game at Arsenal, the leading team in the rankings, on March 19. In Greece, veterinarians are trying to save a white tiger cub that was left in the trash of a zoo in Athens. According to Reuters, this individual is a victim of the illegal wildlife trade. The 3-month-old animal was found by a cleaning worker on February 28 in a trash can in the parking lot of Attica Zoo. Zoo founder Cronjacques Lesueur said, "This is the first time we have recorded such a case. We've seen puppies, kittens, or turtles abandoned before, but this is a tiger." Security camera footage shows a vehicle at the scene the night before the tiger was discovered. Lesueur said authorities were trying to track down the vehicle. According to Reuters, the cub is now emaciated, dehydrated, and in critical condition after taking an X-ray. The doctors found a metal pin stuck in one of the animal's hind legs. The head of the Attica Zoo said that if the animal is lucky enough to pass through the door of death, the animal will be transferred to the reserve because currently the zoo does not keep any individuals of the same species. He added that a number of domestic and foreign animal protection organizations have contacted the zoo to provide support. Ladies and gentlemen, a very exciting camel race took place in the Al Ula Desert in northwest Saudi Arabia, with an extremely attractive prize of up to $4.9 million in cash to the winner. Hundreds of spectators from all over Saudi Arabia and other countries have flocked to the Al Ula Desert to watch the dramatic competitions of strong camels and their owners. Taking place from March 14 to 17 with a total prize pool of more than $21 million, the Al Ula Camel Cup is the largest camel race in the region. This year's first prize belongs to Mohammed bin Ketbi. This is the first tournament in the world for camel racing. People in Saudi Arabia as well as other Gulf countries are very satisfied with this tournament. In addition to the race, cultural events and exhibitions were also held, aimed at promoting the region's history and heritage. The Al Ula Desert is becoming a prominent tourist attraction, following Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's efforts to boost tourism and diversify Saudi Arabia's oil-dependent economy.